Call to order the Newman City Council special meeting. No, wait a minute. We're in the regular meeting, aren't we? Okay,
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Regular meeting, November 12th, 2002. Can we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Remain standing for the invocation, please. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together this evening. Please help us as a council to make the best decisions for the citizens in this community, to help us grow as we in our managed type of growth so that we become a better city. I ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
I thought you were going to shoot me.
We have a roll call, please.
Present.
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 Present. Any communications from staff at the present time? Okay. Oh, Ernie, okay, good.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm going to attempt to recap the events that took place during last Friday's storm and to give you an explanation of the problems that took place. As most everybody knows, it had been raining steadily late Thursday night, most of the early morning on Friday. Sometime around 5 o'clock, we received a heavy downpour for about an hour or so. Our rain gauges at the courtyard and at the wastewater treatment plant indicated that we received over 2 inches of rain during that short period. That's a lot of water. I don't know what the quantity it translates into, but it's a lot.
I got 2 1/4 at my house, total.
I then checked the Lucas Ranch 2 storm lift station, the new one at Canal School Road, sometime around 6:30 in the morning, and I noticed that the pumps were not running and that the Driscoll Avenue was flooding rather rapidly. I called for the public works supervisor and I asked him to check out the lift station and to see if he could get the pumps running. I also called Precision Inspector Ray Little and asked him if his men could come out and assist with the pump, since the lift station hasn't been accepted by the city yet and our people are not familiar with the operation of the lift station. By the time Ray got out to the lift station, Doug had gotten one of the pumps going. They discovered that the amperage breakers had tripped for some unknown reason. They reset the breakers and the pump started pumping the water out in such great quantity that it surcharged the entire drain ditch. This action restricted the discharge of the 42-inch line that gravity feeds on Inyo Avenue, and it caused the storm water in this line to back up and bubble out of the storm drain inlets. All the drain inlets at L Street and Inyo and M Street and Inyo were pushing the water out. This was the cause of the problem with the flooding at Highway 33 in Inyo by Bigelow Chevrolet, and it also caused a lot of other intersections west of Highway 33 to flood out. There were other flood problem areas throughout the city, such as Amy Drive. A lot of those were caused by leaf-clogged drains and surcharged storm drain lines. Yolo and Highway 33 was also underwater due to the backing up of the Inyo storm drain line. Mostly it was too much water at one short period of time. Present problem with the Lucas Ranch 2 storm lift station is that 2 of the 100 horsepower pumps are presently inoperable. They are clogged up with so much mud that they need to be pulled out and hosed out. The 54-inch storm drain line that comes from the Lucas Ranch area and feeds into the lift station had been accumulating mud and dirt for a period of 12 years. A lot of the mud was pumped out with the storm water, but there's still a lot of mud that needs to be removed from the bottom of the lift station and also from the 54-inch storm drain line. There's up to about 3 feet of mud at the bottom of the lift station in some areas, not to mention a bunch of bottles, cans, and other debris. Here's some pictures so that you can take a look at what's at the bottom of that lift station. Rumor had it that a PG&E employee had stated that the transformer feeding the lift station pumps was not big enough to run all the pumps without tripping the breakers. After personally speaking with the engineers of the lift station today, I was assured that there was plenty of power to run all the pumps. The station is designed to run 2 of the 100 horsepower pumps at one time to take care of a 100-year storm. They pump out 22,500 gallons a minute. The third pump is designed to be on standby in case one of the pumps fail. What caused the initial tripping of the breakers on the pumps has not been determined. My best guess is that it could have been caused by the large amount of mud flowing out of that feed pipe. The basis for this guess is that Ray Little stated that once it got the pumps going, it kept tripping the breakers every 10 minutes or so. And they needed to keep resetting the pumps until all the stormwater was pumped out. Once the pumps were running, the Driscoll Avenue flood area was pumped out in a little over an hour. A Vector truck and a jetter is scheduled to clean out the mud from the Lucas Ranch 2 lift station and to clean out the remaining mud that's left in the 54-inch storm drain line by Thursday. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Did you explain this to Lloyd Bigelow?
No, sir. I just put this report together this afternoon, and I was doing a lot of investigating and talking with different people. I talked with Ray this afternoon, and he was the one who witnessed that line backing up, because he said once those pumps went, that whole ditch was just, I mean, that was a lot of water, and everything just backed up and started bubbling out. Once Lucas Ranch was pumped out, then that gravity line ran freely and everything drained out.
When talking to you this morning, you had mentioned to me that Bigelow's problem really hadn't got anything to do with the Lucas Ranch problem. because
Not
they're
with
on
the
separate
lift
lines.
station,
Right.
no. It is not connected. The problem is that gravity line backs up and the drains work in reverse. And that's the main problem. In talking with the city manager this afternoon, I'm going to be coming back to you with a complete report about the drainage, storm drain problems throughout the city, and do it on a PowerPoint presentation so that you can take a look and see and be familiar with what the problems are in what areas, and if there's any resolution to it, if any.
Ernie, I had a question. I'm sure that we did all the prior checks prior to the rainy season because I'm sure the system was ready. But apparently, like you said, the downfall, the rain, where there was such a great amount of rain in such a short period of time that
That's correct.
probably any system would have probably failed
That is
under those
correct,
conditions.
Councilman.
Well, didn't you mention to me this morning when we were talking that in a way it was good that it happened, and that's how we found out that we didn't have enough power in there for those pumps to begin with?
Well, that was when we were thinking that there was merit to what the PG&E
Okay.
rep had stated. But after speaking with the engineers and also speaking with the John Crowley from Woodside Homes, he stated, no, I never signed any agreement with the amount of or rating of the power that was going to be feeding that lift station. And if so, I wouldn't have signed anything. Those pumps were placed there to run, and I'm sure that
So
the
once you get-
engineers assured us that the power is there.
Okay.
I guess I have just one final question then.
Sure.
I'll back up a little, in particular Amy Street, because I know that that's been a concern of the residents there. And you made it a point to say that the drains there may have been backfilled because of leaves and debris.
A couple of problems there. There at Amy, you have two locations where you have siphons, and you have to siphon all the water from one side of the street over to the other side, where a 6-inch pipe connects it over to L Street. And before the guys could get out there, papers and leaves clogged that drain, causing some flooding. Once those were pulled out and cleaned, it was a surcharge of the lines. You had to wait until the
Yeah,
lines drained
flowed.
down.
And then the standing pipe that you showed us pictures of, that had been dormant, the 54-inch pipe. I suspect that that had been dormant for 12 years. That's why there's such a buildup there. And
Right.
Can we say this storm kind of blew everything out and we'll get ourselves in pace? I mean, there were storms all across the country that affected people, and some people lost their lives. So given that perspective, we're going to be able to be a little better prepared, I guess.
I believe so, especially after we clean out the station and lines with the Vector truck on Thursday.
It's the rainy season now.
That's it.
Yeah, if you saw the Modesto V, well, I think we were very lucky. Like a lot of people said, well, we had a lot of problems. Yes, but if you saw the rivers going through some of the streets in Modesto, going into the houses and everything else, we didn't have that problem. So,
And they only hit about a little better than 3/4 of an inch of rain, so compared to what we had, so.
Well, thank you for the report. I think it was well timed. People want to know, so.
So hopefully everything gets under control for the next big storm.
Okay, Mayor.
Yeah, a
Thank
couple of things, Mayor and Council, if
Yes.
I could. As Ernie mentioned, I asked him to bring back a report to look at, there's basically about 4 or 5 problem areas. Some of those have been problem areas, as I understand it, for years. And we want to look at, are there some solutions to those? What are the ultimate solutions? And then maybe some interim solutions that might resolve some of those, so we'll bring those back. But the other thing on this recent storm, a couple of things to mention. Some people have commented to me, well, why didn't we have the leaves cleaned up? Well, if you think about it, most of the leaves hadn't fallen before this storm came in. This storm is what brought these leaves down. I was discussing this with the Public Works Supervisor just, a week before this storm. We were talking about putting the fence up at the old school, and they said, we don't really have any leaves to clean up to get off storm drains because they haven't fallen yet. And they really hadn't begun to fall significantly until this storm hit. The other thing is, at least from what I've seen, normally your first storm of the year isn't near as big as what this one is. You don't expect to see it like this. Normally we have time to, you get some debris washed down to the drains with that first storm and the second one, and so you slowly clean that out. This one gave us, all of it at once. It all hit us at once, and yeah, maybe it caught us a little bit off guard. We were a little bit, because of the fact that we hadn't accepted that pump station yet. We weren't fully up and running with that where we should have been, but I think this has got us where we need to be, and we know what we need to do now to get there. So.
One last thing, apparently these systems have to be watched, on a weekly, daily basis, because I know there's still some drains out there that are plugged up, and if we get another rainfall, they're not going to take the water.
No, we'll be ready. We'll be cleaning.
Okay, thank you, Ernie.
Okay, items from the public, non-agenda items. While the City Council welcomes and encourages participation in the meetings, it would be appreciated if you would limit your comment to 3 minutes so that everyone may be heard. Matters under the jurisdiction of the council and not on the posted agenda may be addressed by the general public at this time. However, California law prohibits the council from taking action on any matter which is not on a posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the City Council. Any non-agenda items? Items from public agenda items. Any member of the audience desiring to address the council on the matter on the agenda, please raise your hand or step to the podium at the time the item is announced by the mayor. In order that all interested parties have an opportunity to speak, any person addressing the council will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes unless the mayor grants a longer period of time. Item number 7, public hearings. 7A, introduce ordinance number 2002, next number, an ordinance of the City Council approving development agreement number 01-2002 for Creekbridge Homes, LP, Walnut Creek Estates. Cleve, you want to?
Yeah, just quickly, I think this is fairly well described in my staff report and the staff report which comes from our planning director and through the planning commission. This development agreement is one of several that you'll be adopting in the next couple of months here. Basically outlines the details of when we negotiated the agreement with the developers and with the BIA for adopting our updated capital facility fees, which took place last April actually. And this development agreement vests those fees that they had in place at that time invest those maps that are currently in place through the year 2010. And those are really the two specifics of this agreement that is designed to take care of.
Any questions?
I do have a concern in the absence of our city attorney. It's this particular section 2.4.7, the protection against growth laws. If my colleagues will resort to.
What page is that on?
It's on
Tim?
page 6 of the Walnut
Okay.
Creek Estates Development Agreement. And I know that we went over this in length with BIA, particularly for the fees increase, but this caught my eye in particular. Does staff have an explanation of what they're requiring or asking here in specific? Or
Well,
is that just
Yeah,
something that's
the basics of this is stating that they are protected from, if the city were to come in and to put a growth ordinance in place, a moratorium on growth,
right?
what it's saying is it will not affect this current subdivision.
In other words, we're not going to go back and say, now that we've approved you guys
We've
for
approved 100
subdivision.
lots, we're not going to let the other 100 go. We can't do that according to this ordinance or this development agreement.
Yeah, I just wanted to make certain it was for this particular development agreement.
Any other questions? Can we hear some direction on, let's see, we'll
Yeah.
open the public hearing. And I don't see anybody out there, so we'll close the public hearing. And if there's no other discussion, why, we'll ask for a motion.
I move we introduce ordinance number 2002, next number, an ordinance of the City Council approving development agreement number 01-2002 for Creek Bridge Homes, LP Walnut Creek Estates.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 8, consent calendar. 8A, approval of warrants. B, approval of minutes of October 22nd special meeting and October 22nd regular meeting. Resolution of City Council of the City of Newman authorizing execution of an agreement with the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, committing $1,568 in matching funds. And item 8D, adopt resolution number 2002, next number, a resolution amending resolution 2001-7, class specifications for City of Newman employees, office manager, office assistant, and clerical aide.
Mr. Mayor, unless there's discussion by my colleagues, I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Move to regular business. Item number 9A, approve contract with Miller Consulting for Geographic Information System, technical support.
Mayor, I would like to request that this item be tabled. There's been a couple of issues relating to coordination with the county and some efforts that they are doing in the area of GIS, and we just need a little bit more time to make sure that what we are doing is going to work well with what the county is doing. So I would like to request that this item be tabled.
Okay, everyone agree to that?
I may be in concurrence, but I would like to comment,
Sure.
since we just went over this presentation.
Sure.
I'm really hard pressed to see how this is going to become applicable for us in us still having such a small town to allocate the $10,000 that I show here on this particular report. I want to make mention at the time that we were given the presentation because I saw that for the consultation. And on this particular report, it says it will be split between public works and planning, where I could see that money being better derived in some of the things that were just brought up with public works with the sewer. I understand the system very well, but it's really applicable to a large city like Modesto, which the presentation was given for, and the county and the staffing that it would provide. As much as you would like to have it tabled, unless you can show me something for a budget item much more reasonable than $10,000 for consultation fees, I'm certainly not going to be an advocate of it. But I will concur with having it tabled.
Okay. Item number 9B, review and approve the final budget adjustments for 2001-2002.
Would that be Margaret?
Good evening, members of the council and honorable mayor. The item before you is an annual event in which council is required to approve all expenditures done during the current year, and that's usually done during the budget process. And those items which occurred during the course of the year, council now has the opportunity to review those and approve them. We don't adjust the line item numbers to be equal what was actually spent. That's not the purpose of this. Any items that is a non-substantial variance between what was budgeted and what was actually spent isn't dealt with at this point in time. There are many reasons for changes in the variances to occur during the course of the year. Projects are added. Cost estimates could be either high or low, and oftentimes these individual items are approved either separately during the course of the year through council action or through the mid-year budget review. And at this point in time, we just compile everything that has been done during the course of the year, and we at one time, year end only, do we make the actual adjustments. If you look on the summary sheet, that's the City of Newman expenditures 2001-2002 budget. You have columns which indicate actual for the year 2000-2001. It was 6.3 million. Actual spent in the year 2001-2002 was 8.097 million. The difference, it has expenditures increased by 1.7 million over the 2 fiscal years. These numbers are given to the auditor to help him finalize the financial statements for the year. The original budget for 2001-2002 was 11,275,000. So the difference from what was budgeted at 11 million and what was actually spent at 8 million is 3.17. So we spent less by $3 million than what was actually budgeted. And that is typically what we do, because we budget for the entire project and we try to make sure that we consider all possible costs before we have the budget approved. And usually the budget amount is usually less than what is spent, hopefully. Then the difference between the original, but then there are a lot, even though as a whole our expenditures are 3 million less, there are particular line items numbers that need additional approval. And when we total those up, that was 327,000. And when we do the final budget adjustment, our new budget with these adjustments included is 11.6 million. And that's what our numbers will reflect with council approval. Specific items, variances, many of which you have already approved, could be either these new projects or cost estimates of projects not being high enough. And occasionally there are just overages, incidences that occurred and accumulated in the line item budget that made it go a substantial amount over what was budgeted. Under the council department, we had the goal setting that occurred last April. That was contracted for after the budget was applied. And also the fund run, we just had a minimal amount of money budgeted last year, and it turned out to be more with security and other costs involved than what was initially budgeted. City manager, there were transfers done through our whole project of improving the council chambers, city hall, and the equipment networking. It was merely a transfer going from the manager's account had savings that went against the city hall account, which was an additional cost with the networking and so forth. The general government building, the $1,200 is primarily the theater. There was repairs to the roof and to the heater, plus in addition the utilities were higher than anticipated. Finance department, $12,000. That's primarily for the fee study. Additional costs when we were concluding it at the beginning of the fiscal year. And also the city hall remodel and those charges had to be increased as well. Government auxiliary, $7,000. An increase in liability retrospect. It was $7,000 for one department. It is split between 3 funds. It's also included in water and wastewater treatment plant, $7,000 in each one of those. A $21,000 additional cost to our liability insurance. Police, $65,000. That's a one-line item number on the cost of claims, an item that council went over in closed session. $77,000 under street construction. That was Inyo Avenue, primarily the removal of the signs earlier this past year. Street maintenance, $11,000. Increase in utilities and dumping fees. Parks, $13,000. We had a grant that was prepared, an application prepared for a park grant. That cost $3,100. You approved that during mid-year budget review. Electrical work done in various parts, $1,700. The skateboard park, the youth center project, increased costs that over initial budget, and also the memorial building, a raise again in the utilities. The assessment district, 4,500. This was damage to a utility pole, but we do put money aside each year, so if there is a physical problem to the utilities in the lighting landscaping district, the fund is there to cover it, but it's not budgeted. And also the dump fees were increased. Water, 54,000. There's maintenance done to a well, and also the normal testing that occurred seemed to be higher than what was budgeted. Business license surcharge, the seasonal flags went above and beyond the typical $20,000 what we budget for the business license surcharge, community promotion, and redevelopment agency. 58,000 is primarily due to the pass-through amount. We had to pay some other agencies where our increment gets passed through to them that only came up last year. Some of them were accumulated over a couple of years, but staff wasn't aware of that until the middle of the year after the budget was adopted. Wastewater treatment plant had a repair of a pump for over 13,000, but there were also transfers within the same department which zeroed out that initial cost. Recreation, the cost 13,000, that was for pool repair and running the pool and getting it set up, utility costs for the heaters. Those are primarily the major, or summary of all the adjustments that will occur in the 327,000, which is lower than last year's total adjustments of 335,000.
We're getting better.
Yes. We strive for perfection.
Any questions for Margaret?
No, again, as we always do, I'd like to commend Margaret on her job that she does. I think it's terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Ernie, while you're here, do you still have the high pressure washer in your budget for this year for?
I believe so.
Yes,
Okay.
it is in the budget, yes.
Okay. You found anything that looks good, or?
We've been looking at a couple of them, and Doug has been trying a couple of them on the areas, but we haven't purchased one outright yet.
Okay, thank you. All right, can we have a motion on adopting this?
I move we approve the final budget adjustments for 2001, 2002.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item 9C, reconsider request by Business License Surcharge Fund Advisory Committee.
Bob's the chair. Oh, Margaret? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, the Business License Surcharge Advisory Committee met on November 6th, and 3 items were discussed. The initial item was the proposal that came before Council in August requesting that the Business License Surcharge Fund be responsible for financing flags at the welcome Newman signs on both ends. And the item that was brought before Council at that time was a replica, aluminum replica that would hang from the arches. And at that time, Council recommended that the item be reviewed and see if there are other alternatives and options. Staff had done that. It went before the committee, and they also discussed it in the chamber, and have still recommended that we still go with the replica of the flag for each end of the downtown welcome Newman sign. The primary reason being the costs involved in putting it up and also the annual maintenance. The second item, last year, over a year ago, we placed for all our merchants, 80-odd merchants received seasonal flags with the poles and 4 different flags for every building downtown. Since that time, some of the flags have been lost, some of the poles have been broken off, and parts need to be purchased to replace those that have been lost or damaged. The estimated cost from the Wooden Goose is $1,600, and the committee recommends that this be funded, and it should last longer than 1 year, but this way all the parts will be available to be repaired and replaced as the need arises. And the third item, when the time comes to purchase a Christmas tree and to avoid having to meet again, they give authorization, or they do recommend that the Business License Surcharge fund our annual downtown Christmas tree. So council can take these recommendations and explore them and advise accordingly.
Okay. Thank you, Margaret.
Mhm.
Hopefully this is the last year for the Christmas tree. We should have a permanent tree by next year. Things go well. Does anyone have any comments on the other two items? I think the Christmas tree is sort of a given. We do that every year, so.
We have received the letter from Mr. Wallace also requesting that we purchase the Christmas tree for the chamber's activities they do at the tree lighting, so.
Paul, you want to tell them why we want extra money for the flags for downtown?
We, as Margaret said, we bought about 80 some odd sets of these flags and whatnot, which included a little bit of overrun, knowing full well that if you put something up, there's going to be some maintenance that has to happen to it. Just wear and tear, and of course you always be concerned about vandalism and somebody loses one or this, that, or the other thing. So we had some overrun planned into our initial, and then what we found is, as Margaret said, there's been some theft. The wheat strands against the American flag were very popular for some reason, and a few of those came up missing.
He disappeared.
Yeah, they disappeared, and a fair number have been ripped or torn off. The money that we're asking for is to replace actual flags. It's also to replace brackets. What's happened is, as vandals grab the flags off, we very often recovered the poles and the flags, but that plastic bracket is broken. And so this includes a fair chunk of, I think, 24 brackets or so to replace. And mostly this is going to replenish the stock that we had initially intended as part of the program, and also to go beyond a little bit. And the flags that we're looking for, the concern is, like buying a China pattern, that the flag that you want all of a sudden goes out of print, and now we've lost this uniformity that we were after. We wanted the whole downtown to look similar, to add some uniformity, to add some cohesion to the whole business community. And if we can't get the flag that we want, obviously that doesn't add that. So we're buying a bit ahead so that we'll have flags to last us until, these wear out, and we're anticipating several years. The brand that was chosen at Sheila Borelli's expertise as a person who's been flying these flags for quite some time. It's a very durable brand, and we expect it to last for years, so we want to make sure that we can replace and have similar flags out for that period of time.
Someone is going to store these particular flags. I understand what your purchase is. It's an anticipatory
Yeah,
purchase.
the chamber has been taking care of both the maintenance and then also the coming and goings of my flag's missing or been stolen, and can you replace it, or I don't want flags anymore, it's a pain to take them in and out. We've gone and collected those from those kind of merchants.
Yesterday being Veterans Day, were the American flags
Yes,
out
they
once
were.
again?
There's a
I figured that
group
much.
of Girl Scouts
Mhm.
who have taken that responsibility over, and they seem to be doing a bang-up job of it. I saw them out picking them up. It brings to mind just how many flags can a Girl Scout carry, and apparently it's quite a few from watching them. They're pretty efficient at it.
Well, on that point, I did want to make one comment, Mr. Mayor. I'm agreeable to the funding of the flag replacement. I understand the purpose of that, and particularly for the maintenance, and the Christmas tree is a given. I do have some concerns about the entrance to the town, the south and the north, because at the time that this came before us in August, we were looking for something more in the lines of the proper etiquette for the flag. And I understand it's cost consideration from what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, what we came back with was, the alternative that was presented was to go ahead and put a flagpole with a flying American flag, which
Yeah.
which certainly is a nicer statement. It's more traditional. It also came with a big price tag.
What was
Not-
that?
I want to say it was $1,200 each end of town.
3,600.
Yeah, $3,600.
Yeah, 3,600.
3,600.
Roughly 3 times what this is.
Yeah.
And what really caught us was we're
Besides the
expecting the aluminum to be basically maintenance-free. I mean, certainly at some point in time it's going to wear out. We would either be back to say we liked them up, they've gotten, a little bit ratty over the past several years. This would be made out of the same stuff that the service club signs that are on the archway now. It would be the same process, so it should weather the same way the service club signs do.
And I'll say this because I value the flag
Sure.
tremendously. In the event that I were to die in the line of duty, that's what they're going to give my wife.
Right.
And so when I think of the flag, I think of it in that prestigious way. And I don't want to, I know the purpose of what it came about since 9/11 in specific, but there were some other ideas that you guys came up with as well, where we talked about our water tower at one point, perhaps having the American flag painted on it. I don't want to, we have a flagpole in front of the fire department, and it was once asked here in the council chambers, why is it sometimes lowered? It's lowered because of a death of a fireman when all those men in police and fire lost their life. You lower. You can't do that with a fixed flag.
That's right.
And I'm taking exception to that because of the significance of the flag. Even more so today. The flag is not faddish to me.
No.
And so we're talking about on an expense basis, well, let's just put these up because they're durable. They can be the wear and tear. And to me, that's just not the, I bet you if you asked a few veterans, that some might be agreeable, but I know when you brought it up at the time about looking into the flagpole, I think that was some of the people that you had talked to about the sacredness of our flag. I would take that out. Maybe we could search something else, but I would take that out of this particular expenditure.
Tim, can I interject just a second?
Yes, sir.
You were mentioning about lowering the flag half-mast, and you couldn't do that with the other one. In reality, that's not going to happen probably there. It happens at the fire department because there's someone there to do that all the time.
Right.
But the other places around town, it doesn't happen. Sometimes it happens at the police department here, but all the other flags they stay up.
Well, I don't know if anyone's noticed, but if you go to Woodside Homes over there off of Hill Street, there is a humongous, large flag and but it looks really nice. And I think that at that entrance to our town, they funded that, of course. That is a tremendous accent. When you talk about the American flag and it flying high, I just wouldn't want to take anything away from that just to say, oh, well, we have the flags at the entrance of our town.
Absolutely.
And that's
Well, I just think in the interim, though, until we get to a size where we can afford it, I think in the meantime, we are saying that, hey, we are a town that, appreciates the American flag, and we're showing it at both ends of town. I think somewhere down the road that there will come a time that we will be able to afford to do something like this. But at this time, I mean, it just, to me, it's prohibitive, but the other one will stand in its place until we can do that.
I agree with that. I think
I know Tim, a
that's
lot of
the way
what
to
we were faced with was looking at $500 a year, basically in perpetuity, and really wondering if that was what we wanted to budget that money for. It's at present, it's 50% of the business license, it's $25 per business, so you chew up 20 businesses' contributions out of 350 or so that the city has. When I get the list, that looks like about how many business licenses. And we really wondered, is that going to chew into our ability to do the Christmas trees in the future, do a bigger flag up on the pole or up on the water tower or something like that? We were concerned about just not being able to do a project in the future. I know that was my concern as a member of this commission. I think that's fairly similar to what the rest of the advisory committee was concerned about, spending this money now and not having it when a big project came along and say, well, kind of not to make any deference to the flag, but to the expenditures that it had nickeled and dimed away our kitty to be able to do the kind of work that we need, especially headed into tight budget times, which is a fund was originally created to
I
alleviate.
have one other quick question, Paul, on the decorative flags in the downtown. Do you have any idea what percentage of the merchants actually actively participate? I don't mean just leave the flag up all the time. I mean, do they take it down at night and store it? How many of those do you think?
I haven't personally surveyed it. There are 2 or 3 that are sort of in Sheila's craw that she has been after about taking them in and up and down. But I haven't surveyed it
I
at
think
10
the
o'clock in
ones,
the
if we
morning
could
and
get
again 10
them
o'clock
all
at night.
to, or most of them to take it up and down, we'd eliminate a lot of the theft and vandalism.
Absolutely,
So-
absolutely. That has been something that Sheila has been diligent on. She's been knocking on doors and certainly letting people know when they come ask her for a replacement flag that they need to get them up and back.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any other questions of Paul?
No, I'd just like to say I'm going to take the agreement of the committee also, even though I'd like to see real flag poles
Yeah.
and flags there someday.
I think we all would, it just...
That's what the committee's for, and if that's their recommendation right now, then I'll go along with that.
That's what we have them for.
That's right. That's what committees are for.
So can we have a motion on this?
I will make a motion, we take the request in consideration of the business license surcharge committee and fund, and get the welcome to Newman signs, the tree, and the flag replacements and the brackets.
I'll second that motion.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Passes 4-0 with one abstention. And we move on to item number 9D. Adopt resolution to implement local government control measures in the PM10 plan for the San Joaquin Valley. Cleve, you want to?
Yeah, I'll take this. Tom could probably give this report as well as me. He knows some of the extensive restrictions that are going to be put on the San Joaquin Valley, some that already have, but will be more even put on if we don't meet some goals that we need to meet in the next few years. This is one of the requirements because of the upgrade in the level that we've been put on that we are required to do. It's unfortunate that this is coming out this way, but if you read through this resolution, basically we are committing to do what we have funding to do. We don't disagree with the things that we've been asked to do. However, we have been very careful to place in the resolution the fact that we will do them as funding permits, and we don't want to commit to do these things in a way that would require us to put funding into these over something else that might be a higher priority for the city council and for the citizens of Newman. And therefore, this resolution, if you read through it, the way it reads is to allow us to do these things if the funding is there to do it. And some of these we are already doing, some of the control measures that are required in here, and we'll continue to look at those. But things like paving alleys, we would like to do that if we had the funding to do it. And someday, hopefully, that will be a priority, that we'll get up high enough and we'll have the funding to do that. But, you know, when it comes to other things, they just may not be. And so we didn't want to make that solid commitment to say, yes, we will definitely do this under this time frame, everything that comes up, because the funding, especially with the difficult funding times that we're going to go into over the next couple of years, I believe, we did not want to make that commitment. We did make a little bit more commitment than some of the other jurisdictions that we've seen, but we were tried to write this in the way that we can commit to doing what we need to if the funding is available to do it.
So actually, they're asking us to do these things, and they're not giving us any cost consideration. In other words, they're not providing funds so that we can fulfill these commitments.
That's correct.
These aren't mandates then to us, they're just...
No. They're not. What we have to do is we have to do this resolution either saying we will or will not do them. If we say we won't do them, we have to explain why we won't do them. So,
Sure, we'll do them as we can get the money.
right.
But in the size of our city, there's not a whole lot that can be done as far as the whole picture goes.
Sure.
When you say pave the alleys, there's not that much dust that's coming off those alleys. What we're looking for is we want these county roads paved, because that's where all your dust comes from. And watering down the farm roads,
Yeah, well,
things
not
like that.
just the farm roads, but all in the agricultural area, you know, when they're out there digging up the ground and plowing. Well, John knows this.
Well, there's not much you can,
all the time.
that's not much you can do about
So,
plowing.
But I think that, I know and where I live, that's where it comes from. Anyway, it all comes from just across from the fields.
Guess we have to stop growing food, I guess.
Well,
That's it, yeah.
But one of our biggest charges for the city of Newman is through education, is to educate the people on what needs to be done. I think what you're going to see next year, this year, is going to be on a basis only that we ask you on certain days not to use your fireplace. You're going to see that next year, nobody will be able to use their fireplace in 8 counties.
It'll be mandatory.
So it'll be mandatory.
You think that's true?
Yes.
Yes.
That's not what the paper was talking about.
No,
The paper said that there might be days.
That's this year, next
That-
year.
Oh, really? Well,
It's already in the works.
yeah.
Next year, as in January coming up, or another whole year?
Another year.
Another whole year?
Another year,
2004.
yeah. Okay,
Fireplace patrols.
any other discussion on this resolution? Can we have a motion to approve it or disapprove it?
Move we approve resolution to implement local government control measures in the PM10 plan for the San Joaquin Valley as stated in the resolution.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 9E,
We're getting there, Carol.
approve recommendation of Parks and Recreation Commission regarding improvements to Lions Park using park grant funding of $58,000 and authorize staff to begin development of specifications. Does this funding, does this leave us monies in our park account to do any work on the Mariposa Park? And
Yeah, well, we have what we have still committed already. These funds were not, we haven't committed these funds to anything. These are new funds. The council actually already adopted the resolution to authorizing me to sign the agreement with the state, which basically commits the funds. Now we go back to the process. We have to tell the state what we're going to spend them on. And that's the process we're going through. But yeah, the money that we've committed to Mariposa Park is still there. It's part of our development, park development fees that are in there. And I mean, this money could also go towards that if we chose to. And that's one of the things that was discussed with the Parks and Recreation Commission, that that's an option. Their recommendation, as you can see in this report, is that we consider using these monies to upgrade Lions Park. And one of the biggest things, the initial thing that I came up with that I wanted to look at this money for is for automating the sprinkler systems in Lions Park. That's the complete area around the Memorial Building, the outfield of the baseball field, Lions Park, that whole grass area around there. Currently, Ernie could probably describe to me a little bit better how time-consuming it is, but currently they have the old sprinklers that they plug in the ground into the quick couplers, and they have to individually go out and turn on each one and then take them out. And as I've mentioned in my report, at times they may not get out there, may skip a day or whatever because of other things that come up, and sometimes they let them run longer because they're out doing something else while they're running and don't get back to them. So that was the main item that I was concerned with, and took to the Parks and Recreation Commission, along with other items for consideration. Some of those included improvements to the park strips around the parks. We looked at some possible improvements. We brought up the issue that the mayor had mentioned as far as some possible improvements to the Pioneer Park, the kitchen area and the barbecue area, the pavilion area around there. We looked at all of those, and the recommendation of the Parks and Recreation Commission was that this money go into development of that sprinkler system, plus I have a few other slides to show. I put together some quick things. This is the total Lions Park that we would be looking at doing, and the green area along this strip. This isn't to scale or anything, but this would go along Park Street, which goes down right here, enters into the high school. The tennis courts would be up in this area, but this area right here is just open area and might meet some of those goals that we just talked about under the PM10 requirements, because it's very dusty. There's no irrigation in that area. The area along this is the youth center right here. From here up to the baseball field, kind of in this area along the youth center. Actually, at one time it appears was paved. There's some asphalt in there, but it's all mostly broken up. You can't tell unless you actually get out there and try and dig in it a little bit. Some of you have been around longer in the community than I have, may remember what there was in there. But the idea is to landscape this entire area, along with putting the irrigation in all of these areas around here, including up here on this end of the pool, around the skate park, and all in this area of Lions Park. Couple of photos we have. It will also include this area in front of the youth center. This is in asphalt also here. And then going down the side, here's the youth center over here. This is the area we talked about. We also looked at putting in permanent trash enclosures, so these dumpsters you notice that are on the street all the time as you drive down here would be in a trash enclosure cut back inside the curb here to hide those. But we looked at the improvements we're looking at includes landscaping in the terms of a shrub bed along the back side of this of the youth center here. Going on down, this is just, you can see this and goes all the way down here, and this area here, I'm not sure this has ever had asphalt in it. This seems to be more just dirt, but I'm not positive about that. So all of this area would be put into grass, sprinkler systems, and sod with some trees planted. They proposed right in this area, kind of behind this dugout, that will provide additional shading. We get a lot of complaints about why don't we put a shade structure or something over these bleachers here. Middle of summer they can get pretty hot, but with some trees in this area would help with providing some shade from the west over these bleachers. And then the last area, this is the youth center. These are our new restrooms that we just built. There's an area in here, and we talked about adding landscaping in this area. But the final recommendation that we came up with was rather than landscape this, because of the difficulty in getting into it, very heavy traffic, the grass would probably get beat up in that area. We looked at probably just putting concrete in there and bringing in a couple of picnic tables on that area that can be used with the snack bar that they have during baseball games and stuff. There's really, other than sitting on the bleachers, there's no place to go. This would be, you know, two or three like round tables that could be picnic areas in here for people to sit on when they get something to eat during games and stuff. So thought that was better than trying to landscape this area. And that's the basics of it. We haven't had anything official drawn up. You'll see there are some estimates in your packet. We talked to Greg Braun, who owns a landscaping service, just to see where we might be at on costs if we try to do all of this. And you can see that with what he put together, we're going to be right there and using probably pretty much this whole amount, if not maybe just a little bit over, depending on how it comes in the end. We'll probably look at a couple of the things, putting in some bid alternates, so that if we do go over, we have the opportunity to maybe cut back on some things to, so that we don't go too far over this $58,000 that we have.
And this would be put out to bid, though?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, these are simply estimates for our
Okay.
purposes in deciding, you know, what could we do and how much money we have. So, yeah, this would have to go out to bid.
Any questions of Cleve?
Yeah, Cleve, how about the parking area off Hardin, the gravel area? Did the commission talk anything about that?
They didn't really talk about doing, one of the problems we have with that area, and Ernie, you can help me out here, is that if we do anything with that gravel area, there's no storm drainage in that area. And basically, as I understand it, Ernie, the water just runs off to the sides and runs out along Hardin Road there.
By the skate park, Ernie? You know, where the gravel, the parking,
Between the
gravel.
band room and Lions Park there.
That's gravel.
And also,
So, in
according to
order
Blake,
to
we'll
really
put
do
it in.
improvements in terms of asphalting that or something, we would also have to do storm drainage, which would get pretty significant in that area. And so that's why I think we kind of decided that that wasn't something we could do, at least not right now.
Any other questions? Any discussion? Can we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the recommendations of the Park and Recreation Commission regarding improvements to Lions Park, the grant funding of $58,000, authorizing staff to begin development of specifications.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Item number 9F. Consider appointment, reappointment of Architecture Review Committee members. Kevin is not here tonight, so you have two sheets here. Carol is here. Thank goodness. I didn't know whether she would be back or not after last time, but does anyone have any comments on this, or?
We only have one person for each opening,
That's right.
yeah, so.
That ad ran for at least 2 weeks. I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did have one other gentleman come in last week and pick up an application. He was going to fill it out, but he didn't want to right then. And I said, well, if you can at least bring it back to us by Tuesday, I will pass it on to the city council, but it didn't come in today.
You didn't
I
know whether it
see
was business or professional?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Well, I move that we reappoint the 2 applicants that have showed continued interest.
Second.
I think that we ought to be glad that we have these people that'll come out and do these things. It's so hard to get anyone to do it, and I think they've done a fine job so far. So, any other discussion? Can we have a motion? We have a motion. And we have a second.
Did we
All
have
in
both?
favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Congratulations, Carol.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. We really appreciate it.
Number 9G, consider filing notice of completion release of full or part retention to D.H. Williams Construction Company for downtown streetscape project. Resolution number 2002, next number, accepting a construction contract. Cleve?
Okay, what I've done in my report is tried to spell out 4 options to you tonight. And I left some blanks in there. You see, I'm going to try to spell out those numbers to you. We've been trying to gather those actually for quite some time now to get these numbers together. But a couple of things. The first thing that number that I'd like to give to you is this would be what I consider definitely warranty items. These are the items that are basically cracks in sidewalks. This does not include the intersections. Any of the intersections. It's only cracks in sidewalks or curb and gutter. And the cost that was derived at, that we came to on that is a total of about $3,500. That's to replace, to tear out and replace all of the areas that we've defined in there that are cracked. Okay.
This is number 2 on your...
This would be, no. Actually, it's a portion of number 2. Number 2 would be both the warranty items and new items together. Okay, so it'd be the $3,500. I had a little bit of problem. What I've been trying to come up with was the cost for the replacement of the bike racks. That's probably one of the biggest issues is if they need to be completely replaced with the way they should have been, which is the powder-coated paint job on them. In order to do that, they would have to be taken out, taken somewhere, powder-coated, and then put back in. What I did is put together a cost of if we completely replaced them, bought new ones that were powder-coated, and I came up with a cost of, those were approximately $600 a piece and $200 of installation costs is what I put together for a total of $800, and there's 11 bike racks for a total of $8,800 if we had to do those. The third cost is and probably the big one is the issue of the intersections, and what I have still not been able to come up with a solid cost on what it would be to replace a portion or all of those intersections. I believe what is listed in our punch list that we have is just the south portion of the Fresno and Main Street intersection. The concern that we've discussed is what kind of damage and what would happen if we tried to pull out just that one section. And I think it could be done. They would have to be careful with that, but it would be quite an extensive cost. My estimates in looking in that are somewhere in the neighborhood of around $20,000 to $25,000 probably to do one of those. By the time you get all of it pulled out, the compaction and everything that would be required to make sure all of that is solid, and then pour back in, replace the brick, and make sure that all of that work is done. Replace the lettering that would have to be done also. So I'm putting that somewhere around $20,000 to $25,000. And those are the costs that I've come up with. If you add those three together, if you put a figure of $25,000 in there, you come up with, $32,800.
37,000, I got 37,300.
37.3, that's
Oh, right, I left off the 3,500.
Yeah,
You're right.
37,000.
Right.
I wish our lawyer was here to get a
Well-
little advice about that too.
He thought he would be here. I did talk with him quite a bit. He was actually in our offices this afternoon, taking care of some other business, and I talked to him quite a bit about it. And all I can tell you is he did tell me that our best chance of winning in court is to do everything that we are responsible to do. And his recommendation was similar to what I've recommended, is that we go ahead and file the notice of completion and look at returning the full retention, the $210,000. His contention is that whenever you go to court, if you can show that you've done everything that you were supposed to do on your side, then you have the best chance of winning in court. I'm not completely convinced that even if we return this amount, that we will end up in court. I'm still fairly confident in talking to the contractor that we may be able to reach a conclusion that we will be satisfied.
Where is that confidence deriving from? I really want to know. I'm reading D.H. Williams' letter here. I saw it in the staff report. Where do you garnish that confidence? I don't have it. And part of it is what this letter says here from D.H. Williams.
Sure.
And part of it's also what he said he himself. He talks about specifically in his letter, as the project was a design disaster from the beginning, this has taken me quite some time to put together. I do have obligations to other clients also. They should not be made to suffer for Newman's failures. That's a direct quote here in his letter.
Sure.
The man has stated when he was out here working some 12, 13 months ago that he wanted to get in this town and get out as fast as he could. That's been evident. So my confidence level is we pay him the rest of his money, and then we would have to litigate getting back some of our monies based on some of the shoddiness of the work. Where are you deriving your confidence from?
What about a notice of completion and giving back everything but the 37,000, make an agreement with them that we'll take care of this?
That's a possibility also, yeah.
But
All I can tell, Tim, my answer to you would be my discussions with him, other than with this letter. I've had discussions with him since this letter, and I am fairly confident that he would come back into town and fix the items that he truly feels are his responsibility to fix. And he knows that some of those are.
Does
He
anyone
knows-
else have that confidence?
He knows the
Does
bike
my
racks
colleague-
are
I know I
his
don't.
responsibility.
I know what I
Well,
don't.
he says if you don't return the 210, he's not coming back out at all.
Cleve, question.
That's what he said.
I'm reading this man's letter right here in front of me.
Our attorney, what is his recommendation?
His recommendation was that we return the full amount.
Okay, and what he's saying that we stand a better chance of getting this work done by doing that.
That's
Because if we
correct.
retain the money, then we cannot proceed with
If we retain the money,
can't proceed.
I think we would have a difficult time moving ahead with the work using that money. I think we would probably end up getting I can tell you for sure that we would be in court probably before we had a chance to do that work, based on my discussions with him.
I feel I'd go with the recommendation of our lawyer. After all, we're paying him good money to give us legal advice, and I think it's exactly what he's giving us. That's my feelings.
And as much as I could appreciate that, I wish he were here our attorney was here to verbalize that, just so we can get some kind of clarification. But I'm not comfortable with it. I wouldn't vote for completion, so we'll see how this works out.
Cleve, do you think that why Tom is recommending that, our lawyers, because some of the things that were done without plans? I mean, when it came down to the nitty gritty of doing it, which we talked earlier today, there was no plans for some of this stuff. So if we do go to court, he's going to say that he just tried to do the best he could because our plans were wrong and we didn't stop and re-engineer everything.
Well, he had to go in and
So-
re-engineer it himself.
Well, that's it. So, I mean, that's probably, I think, what the lawyers are going by, that he was just trying to help us out and doing that, and we don't have any plans
no
that say
teeth,
that he
huh?
did them wrong.
No teeth.
That's it.
He did discuss that with me a little bit today, is the fact that, you know, rightfully, any contractor most contractors, I will say, that would have come in here and found the plans probably in the condition that he did, would have given the plans back to us.
Right.
Possibly with the street already torn up, and said,
Do it right.
when you've got these done right, call me back and I'll come back in and do the work. Like it or not, whether it was right or wrong, this particular contractor chose to stay with it, and as Ernie can attest, he did some of the engineering as he went out there on the job. Some of the design work, some of the elevations, especially of sidewalks and curb and gutter that had to be changed on the job, were done by him while he was out there. You know, I know that we've got a real concern with the stamped concrete in the intersections.
The lettering, that the remedy is starting to peel. You can see where in some areas that's peeling.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are some little things that Ernie has brought to my attention around the edges. I don't think there's anything that is major that is looking like it's going to peel yet. But
Yes, Carol.
I hate to interrupt you. I don't know if I can get this proper or not.
can
you get up there? Yeah, please.
I'm My name is Carol Stevens. I live at 1107 S Street. I'm also a member of the Streetscape Committee, but I am concerned about the letters, and I didn't know if I'm jumping the gun and if it's something that you were going to bring up as needing to be corrected or not. But they're not. It's not just the edges; they're bubbling up. The ones on the east side of Fresno are bubbling up now. I don't know if it happened after the rain or what, but it's really apparent that that lettering is not the answer.
Okay.
And I think that you should consider retaining, if you're going to retain money to do something about that.
Mm-hmm.
And if the letters, I think that I've asked you, but maybe just as a single person, I think we need to meet again, the Streetscape, to talk about alternatives. It may be that those letters have to be removed and the whole thing reported and stamped, because there may not be a correction to those letters.
Yeah.
And so, but if you're going to consider retention of money, I think you better consider more for those letters, because I agree with Tim. I looked at them yesterday and today, and they are raising. They're peeling right off the surface.
Okay.
That's all, thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Carol.
We've, according to what you stated here, as long as we retain that retention money, we cannot take any legal action against him. Is that correct? What recourse?
Well,
is that an accurate
I
statement?
don't know if we have any legal recourse against him, because we're still saying he hasn't completed the job, and we're holding the money trying to get him to complete it.
But I'm
at
saying,
that time.
according to this
Sure.
statement in your number one,
Yeah.
that's what it's stating.
Yeah.
It's stating that our hands are tied. If we retain that retention money, we can't do anything against him.
I would definitely say if we retain the full amount.
You're gonna be in
That's
court.
true.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I think we want to avoid litigation if at all possible, because the only people that win there are the attorneys.
Yeah.
So,
Well, with that, I might consider us paying forth some monies with amending the amount that we actually retain. I just want to make a comment, though, that was brought up by our chamber president, Paul Wallace, and sometimes was brought up by the mayor, and was brought up by this council, where we talked about avidly seeking some penalties, some resources from this council to say, how are we going to hold the contractor accountable for the work we're not particularly pleased with, particularly the lettering and the intersections. Granted, we know that the engineering had some problems and some difficulties, but he definitely took on the job. And if things were done in a makeshift manner as he went along, I feel like he's responsible for it. And because of that, I take the position that once we pay him, what's to encourage him to come back? And when you talk about litigation, yeah, you can hold that over our head. His letter is from himself, and he makes mention to sending this to his attorney, but it's not lodged in an attorney form. And so I just wanted to make mention of that if we do consider any amount, that I would amend it that we pay him maybe $100,000 to retain at least the additional $110,000. We don't know how much those intersections are going to cost. We have to take out at least one and have it redone. So maybe we pay him $100,000, retain $110,000, and see if we can mitigate out the rest. That's my proposal.
what if we would pay him the full amount that we owe him and get a written agreement that that these things will be done. Would that be possible?
Well, what I tried to do is, prior to bringing this to you, I requested that he come up here and meet with me prior to this meeting so that we could go through these items, because he hasn't been up here to, he's seen these, but he hasn't been up here to walk through these items with me, and I tried to get him to do that. His statement to me, this was after he had written that letter, was that he feels that he completed the project. He knows there are some warranty items, and by law, this is his statement, I'm not saying this, this is his statement. By law, once he has completed the items, we are required to file a notice of completion and return the retention. Now that's subject to some interpretation, because in my mind I'm not completely convinced that all the items were completed. For example, the bike racks, in my mind, were never completed because they weren't done right. They couldn't be accepted in my mind. So there are some items out there that, I think justifiably we did not file the notice of completion. The other point is that you can actually file a notice of completion prior to, in other words, the term that is used is it's substantially complete. At the discretion of the city engineer, if the engineer determines, yeah, it's substantially complete, you can actually file it prior to a small list of items being completed. And would be at our discretion of doing that. Now, whether or not the items that are left, would say that it meets that requirement of substantial compliance. The other thing is that I'd just like to mention is, I agree with you, and I agree with what Carol is saying. We're going to have to take another hard look at those intersections. The problem with those is, as close as what plans the contractor had, I feel that he installed those intersections in conformance with the plans. They failed. There's no doubt about it. There's some process with the letter portion of them. I'm pretty much convinced, after looking into it and talking to my staff, Ernie and Ray, with the stamped concrete, I am not convinced that you will get any better if you were to completely tear those out and redo those, with the exception of maybe the intersection where the one intersection where the Fresno Street is, Fresno Street, that broke up worse than the others. The other intersections, that stamped concrete, what everybody is telling me is, you're going to get cracks in it. You've got a lot of heavy load on it. You've got a lot of turning motions going on it. It's confined into a space with the curbing and the bricks and everything else that's around it and the asphalt. It has no room to move, and you're going to get some cracks in it. Now, is that an acceptable level of cracking? I think that's what the question is. How much cracking is acceptable? Because there's no doubt, no matter how well you pour that, you're going to get some cracks in it. So the question is, whether or not, I'm not going to disagree with Councilmember Parker, and I agree, I understand where he's coming from and not having that confidence. And I'm just saying, in my conversations, I think I have a little bit different view, and I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm just saying, I'm giving you my point of view in my conversations that I've had with the contractor that you haven't been able to have. And I'm not, I'm willing to go along with whatever the council's recommendation is. My job is simply to make my recommendations based on what I've researched with my staff and in my discussions with the contractor and with the city attorney, and then the council has that option to accept that or move on. And I'm not saying that I'm going to be upset if you don't accept my recommendation. I'm just telling you what, that's what I feel my job is present you with what my recommendation is at this time.
So in hindsight, we probably should have gone ahead with the pavers in the intersections rather than the stamped concrete.
Possibly, yeah.
But we didn't, so.
But we didn't have the money to do it. We would have to take something else out.
Yeah, it's true. Ernie, would you like to say something?
Yes, I would. Some time ago, I had a retired Caltrans engineer meet with me so I could get his opinion of the concrete and the work that was out there. As a matter of fact, he met Bob Navoa out there. His name's Gary Caldwell. He's a consultant to Stan Cog. In asking him his opinion on that, again, he said, okay, there's cracking in concrete, but again, it's, who's going to make that determination whether, it's acceptable or if it's not. The only caveat he gave me was, he said, those contractors are protected, so you better have all your paperwork in order, and you better have made all your progress payments, and you better have filed whenever he wanted to file his notice or whatever, and has gotten paid in a timely manner unless you had complete justification not to. If you don't, and it goes to litigation, then you guys are in trouble.
So how
Or
well,
whatever that's
so
worth.
my question would be, how well documented are we with our complaints and the logistics of, and let me say this on behalf of staff, when you talk about trust, I don't have any problems with staff reports and the trust gained through what we understand here. It's just that I know that visually what we've been able to see, just like you said that you asked for him to meet you prior to meeting with the council and going over this punch list, that hasn't happened. And he also sends this very direct letter. And I want to say this because in his letter, he alludes to penalizing us if we don't pay him. Now those are things that we brought up months ago about the contractor. But here it is in his direct letter that he wants to start penalizing the city of Newman because he wants his money. And how well documented are we with our complaints in an incremental fashion? In other words, over the time that we've been having these discussions.
I think that we've done fairly well with it. As far as the progress payments, I think that we've done well in paying those. We've filed our reports when we needed to, and so I don't see a big problem in that. The biggest issue, I believe, is with the again, he's saying it was done. For example, we didn't do the notice of completion because the letters all broke up. Well, should have that been done? He had done it according to the plans, so should have a notice of completion been done at that time? That's the issue that's out there, and I think when I was talking to Tom Hallinan, our city attorney, about it today, he said there's good arguments on both sides. That he said his chances, he looked at it, went to court, maybe be something like a 50-50.
I think it would
Because
somehow be
there's good
prudent
arguments
if
both
we
ways.
retain enough money to cover the things that we're concerned with, more so than just the monies that you spoke of, some 30-something thousand. I think it would just be fiscally responsible if we retain a certain amount of money for all these glitches that we're going to have to deal with. A project that's not quite 18 months old, that in some areas looks as if it's been there for years, just to be rational about it. I mean, if we're going to pay the man for his services, then I think we should only be fair to ourselves to retain some of the monies till we can come to some type of resolve.
But then we get into
We're not gonna-
actually completion. It has been completed.
Well, he gave
It hasn't been
he gave
completed
some,
right, but it's
he
been
gave some
completed.
wording for it substantially completed, because some of it is. That means, you're saying to us that somebody could come in and do a job, and it could be a horrendous job, but they completed the job, so you have to accept that. So just go ahead and pay. That's what I'm hearing here. To me,
Yeah.
that doesn't make a lot of common sense.
Well, the only thing I feel, Tim, by retaining any portion of that retention money is not going to change his position. So what leverage does that give us to have him perform? I don't think that's going to make any difference. His position, he's not going to do it.
Do you think he would, what I mentioned before, and we had talked about this before, do you think that he would let us keep the 37 and do the work ourselves? And give him the rest back?
We don't know that that's going to cover it.
I don't know that yet.
If the whole intersections have to be torn out, new lettering and everything, and I don't think that.
Well, I don't think he's going to do that
25,000
anyhow.
Well, he's not
That's,
going to do that.
that's not
There's
for
no
all the
way.
intersections, yeah.
I'm not necessarily sure, because we don't have the contractor D.H. Williams himself to discuss it, but just in your negotiations with him, if he were to get the whole full retention amount, there's no question he's gone. He's done. Yeah, we have to trust whether or not he comes back. If he gets a partial, he might just settle for that and say that he's done. We don't know that for certain. I mean, I see a letter from him making these allegations of turning it over to his attorney. We're at a bit of a disadvantage with our attorney not being here, and I understand relying on staff's report of what's been said. I'm just not comfortable with it. I mean, I'm at the liberty of my colleagues, but I know how my position stands.
Can we hold this 2 weeks until he's here? Explain to Williams that, hey, we didn't have our,
We could, but I had told him that we would have some sort of answer for him coming out of this meeting. I just assumed that we would.
Tell him that's our answer.
Yeah.
Tell him that's our answer.
I'll tell you what our city attorney told me. He said, you know, I could be here, but he says, I don't know what more I can add to what you're saying. And I'm not trying to influence you to make the decision, but that was his comment to me today. He said, if you tell them that, you know, they're probably going to ask me what are our chances of winning in court if we return it. He says, I can't give them that. You know, it's maybe something like 50-50 like we discussed. He said there's arguments on both sides. But he did say, you know, he would attempt to be here. He may be here any time. I don't know. I haven't heard from him. But he did mention that he didn't know what he could add to the process other than he did agree with what I had, the 4 options that I had put in my report. So,
Paul, do you have a comment?
Yeah, just as you go through hearing this, I hear an awful lot about what we're dealing with the general contractor himself, but I'm just concerned that maybe the city is, I'm hoping the city is in fact going after the engineer, and I mean, this sounds like there were errors and omissions made, and most professionals in my professional pest control, my wife's profession of being a veterinarian, we have errors and omissions insurance. When we make a mistake like not specifying the proper whatever it was about that concrete that made it fail, that it's there for us to fix our mistakes, that mistakes legitimately happen, and I hope we're going after the engineer or whoever it is that's responsible for bad plans.
well, the engineer worked for Precision.
And
we're still reviewing that and looking at our options. I've discussed it a little bit with our city attorney. So yes, we are looking at that. One of the things that I'll just tell you we're looking at in that area is we haven't decided fully yet, because one of the issues would be if we decided that, as Carol has mentioned, that those intersections had to be completely pulled out and replaced. What would that cost be to do all of them? And if that were the case, that may be an errors and omissions thing, if it were a poor design by the engineer. But that's one of the issues why we haven't proceeded fully with that. I think we're pretty close to answering that question, but I don't think we're fully there to say yet that, yeah, those were a faulty design, and they're, you know, to really say something that you would be able to collect fully on errors and omissions insurance from an insurance company. I think you would have to say that, well, they collapsed, they fell apart, structurally they're not working. We may not like the way they look, but aesthetics is not always the determining factor in winning something on an errors and omissions type issue. But I'm just saying that is something still that we are looking at and considering.
Well, I would suggest that we table this for another 2 weeks to our next meeting. In here in his letter, he stipulates some amount of money penalizing us. I don't think that'll be realized. That's just his statement on the fact of whether or not we close by November 1st. Today's already the middle of the month, so.
I'm going to agree with Tim, only because our lawyer isn't here. And I had some more questions. Then maybe he could answer if he was here, so.
What if we had a special meeting with just, if we get our attorney over here before the 2 weeks?
That's up to the council. I can.
How about Monday the 18th?
You're already checking it.
Sounds,
you're checking ready.
it sounds, can we do that?
Mondays are normal. I'm just saying Monday are normally his. I think he has another council meetings on Mondays.
Well, why don't we work our schedule around his then?
I can check with him and find out his schedule if you'd like, and then
Yeah.
email you.
The
and confirm
first
a
day
date.
he's available.
Okay.
That won't work for me because I'll be absent from this Thursday until our meeting on the 26th. I'll be back by the 25th. I think this is an important enough matter that it requires a full council.
I won't be here. I'm leaving Friday and I won't be back till the
How about
23rd.
that?
Does anybody stay home anymore?
Well,
Would you,
What? Telephone hookup
I
from
could check.
Hawaii.
you're leaving Friday, Tom?
Yeah.
We could check into the possibility of doing it as, well, does that give us our notice requirement if we did it as soon as Thursday? Judy? Just need 24 hours, right, for an emergency meeting?
How about we direct staff to give some semblance of a resolve with D.H. Williams to see in terms of what he may be willing to negotiate with the problems that we have. In other words, talk with him based on what the information we've given you tonight, how we felt about this, all the opinions, and see what may be able to be worked out to resolve it. Because I certainly believe that the full $210,000, we're going to be at a loss once that money is paid, and we'll be stuck with whatever we have. And to compel D.H. Williams Construction, who thinks that the job is done and he's finished, to come back and do work, as he refers to in his letter, extra. That's what his wording is. That why would he want to come back and do anything extra when he feels he's completed the task? So that would be something I think that can be negotiated
Well,
with the contract.
he's completed the task, but there are warranties that he has to honor, so.
Question I have, Cleve, we're talking about, talking to our lawyer, and what if our lawyer says pay him? Is the council gonna go along with that recommendation?
He's already made that recommendation.
I know he has, and I think he'll make that same recommendation. So I think he's just gonna say the same thing over again. I don't think he's gonna change what he's already said.
I can't answer for him, that's.
No, but I mean, you should
Yeah,
have
sure.
some feelings on that. I mean,
What are your thoughts on that, Jim? Since, if he says, go, just pay him, if our attorney says that, what would you?
Well, I mean, we have an issue before us, and as much as I've stated my opinion and my position on it, if that's the will of my colleagues, I can sit here on the end and give my vote, yea or nay. I know that my current position is not to pay him the full retention amount, and state that this project is
So-
completed.
Well, what I'm asking though is, so it really doesn't make any difference,
What he
whether
says.
the attorney is here, what he says, so you still feel.
I think it does make a difference with the attorney's position, but I also think it makes a difference with the negotiating with staff and D.H. Williams. He sends us a letter that says, hey, pay me my money now, I'm done. And we're not satisfied with the completed task, with the punch list items that he hasn't bothered to come and take a look at. He's just saying, well, that's stuff under warranty. So
Well-
we haven't had full cooperation there, according to what staff is reporting. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's something along the lines you just told us, right?
I think we have to get this resolved as soon as possible, one way or the other. So, Cleve, do you think it's possible to get a meeting Thursday?
I'll
You'll
have
still
to-
be here Thursday, right, Tim?
I'll be here as of Wednesday. I'm leaving Thursday. Let me say, if you want to resolve it by meeting with the city attorney, getting his opinion, and bring it back to our next calendar meeting on the 26th, where we can make a decision, that's fine.
Well, there's not really, we could just have him there at the meeting then, if you're gonna wait till then, so it doesn't make any difference, really. All right, what's your pleasure? John and
I don't
Tim,
know.
I think.
Well, I'm gonna go along with whatever the attorney says. Like Bob says, that's what we pay him for.
So you wanna wait then until 2 weeks?
I guess.
That doesn't sound very positive.
I'm not positive yet. I wish the attorney was here. But if you think that's what he's gonna say, that our chances are better if he's paid, then we have recourse after.
That was
That's
the
what he's
discussion that I had with him this morning.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to go along with what the attorney says.
Yeah,
then.
I'm ready.
I mean,
Well.
I don't like
yeah, we
it,
can-
but I'm not a lawyer, so.
Well, let's put it this way.
Can we have a motion to consider filing a notice of completion and release of full or partial retention to D.H. Ways and Construction for downtown streetscape project, resolution number 02, next number?
So moved.
Can we have a second on that?
Where do we get the second?
I'll second it.
I have a point of
Okay, now,
I have a point
discussion.
of clarification, Mr. Mayor. Are we choosing option 1, 2, 3, or 4? What is the exact? There's stipulated options here in the staff report.
Well, the notice of
Or option
completion.
one.
It's option 1.
Option number 1.
That's return of the full retention?
Mhm.
Is that what you're recommending?
That's what we're recommending.
And I'll call for a roll call vote then.
All right. Judy?
Councilmember Parker,
No.
Applegate,
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Anestia,
Yes.
Mayor Reed.
Yes. Items from city manager. Cleve?
I don't believe I have anything particular to add. We did, as you may have noticed, the fence is going up over at the
Looks good.
schoolhouse, and we hope to have that completed by the end of the week, barring any more large rainstorms that might interrupt us. But
Do we have the use of our youth center yet, or are the kids, are they still in there?
they're still in there currently.
So as soon as the fence is done,
Until
then
we can
we'll,
get the fence up, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And that should be done probably the end of the week?
We hope to have it done by the end of the week. We then have to schedule the state inspector to look at it, and then it should be ready to go.
How about the gates and the things that were missing on it?
They are supposedly en route. We-
Hopefully not on the
Where
same
we heard
project.
that one.
We did get through to them, and I'm just trying to confirm that right now. They said that they would send them, so.
Anything else?
Other than that, council had just mentioned, we did meet prior to this concerning the hiring of the new community development director, and council conferred, an offer has been made, however, has not been accepted, so I won't announce any names yet at this time until we see what happens with that. But hopefully, early December, we hope to have that position filled. And with that, I don't think I have anything else unless there's any questions.
Just have Tom Hallinan sharpen his pencil.
Okay.
Items from city council members. Tim, we'll start with you.
Thank you, sir. I just want to ask of staff the drainage tile. I saw in the monthly reports where that is up and running. Is that correct? I'm speaking about in the industrial park.
Yes.
And I know we just had a monsoon of water out there, but what can we look towards that actually working, particularly for the pallet company? Have they started those forms for their, I saw it just a field out there and some forms, but where are we with that?
They've completed the installation of all the perforated pipeline out there. They also have installed the wet well and the pump. However, the problem is trying to get PG&E to get power out there.
Power,
Right,
okay.
right. So they did have a portable generator that was there, and John saw that. He was pumping water like crazy.
Yeah, I went out
out
and
of
looked at
there.
it.
This guy, I estimated it about 250, 300 gallons per minute.
Yeah, that's
So it was really collecting it. And I noticed that you also had some open holes out there that were down about 6 feet down. There was no water in them.
Oh,
So-
that's a good sign then.
Right.
Then with that, I guess my follow-up question would be to the city manager, where are we with our logistics with the county?
We are ready to file again. The only thing we are kind of waiting for still is to get that actually power hooked up so that we can definitely say the system is done and ready to go, and there's no issue with the water table.
Have we been notifying Norbert of our progression or
Yeah.
lack of thereof?
Mhm.
Great.
Yeah, he knows where we're at.
And PG&E is putting the pole in when?
We cannot get a
I
commitment
saw
from
where it
them
said
yet.
3 months on this staff.
That's what I
Yeah.
saw too. But,
That's what we've been told, and Ernie's been working, trying to get that timetable moved up. I don't know if you've had any success yet, Ernie.
Yeah, George Souza was the one who stated that it was about 3 months out. However, I went and I visited, excuse me, the PG&E office last Friday, and I've got the name of a person out of the Merced office, and I'm trying to get in touch with him and see if he could, because we are co-partners with that project, see if we can get a priority to be moved up and get it in a lot shorter time.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you. Anything
I
else?
have nothing further. Thank you.
Tom?
Well, I'd just like to thank the police chief, Brady, for his implementation plan for the new helmet law. Thank you very much for doing that. And like you say, I think there's going to be a big surprise January the 1st when they find out they have to wear them.
Are you gonna have a ticket book trying to enforce that law?
I won't be
I
on the
wouldn't-
council anymore, but I will.
I wouldn't advise that,
I
really.
Well, I noticed though, during the storm when it was coming down, about 5 o'clock in the morning, I didn't see any kids out there on the skate park. No, that's all I have.
Okay. Bob?
The only comment I'd like to make, we just had an election, and I'm proud to say the people that ran in Newman were very civil, and they ran their campaigns, I think, very professionally, and they should be commended. We didn't see the same sort of thing around the rest of our county and city, and state, so I just like to thank them for being very civil to one another and being very professional in the way they conducted their campaigns.
And the local signs are gone. They picked them up.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, anyway, but it was good to see that it was a clean campaign here, Newman.
Anything else? Okay. John?
We're civilized people here. Well, we're not mudslingers like the rest of the.
We were
the other
day.
I was gonna make a couple comments on the tile drain, but I think everything's been said. Just to clarify, it's called a tile drain, but as Ernie said, it's perforated pipe with rock on top and bottom. So, but if it should happen to dry up again, maybe we can get another portable generator to start pumping again. Obviously, right now it's too wet, so Norbert can't do anything anyway while it's too wet. And so just have to see how the weather goes and go from there. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you. A couple of things here. One thing, Mike, I've got a complaint from a person who lives on Duck Blind Drive about speeding up there. Would it be possible to maybe get some more police presence and maybe get the little trailer out there on Duck Blind maybe a couple times? I know we don't have any signs up there. We don't have signs in any neighborhood, but it's 25 miles an hour. So if maybe give the people an idea that that's what it is, and see if that works. The Adopt-A-Pot program. This is something that Susan Mattos came up with, and we had people adopt all these pots in town, and they look pretty good. And it saved the city a lot of time, a lot of money, and we are going to recognize these people with possibly plaques on the pots and certificates. But in the meantime, I'd just like to read the names of the people who are doing this. I'm not going to say which one each one does. I'll just read their names. There's Mary Moore, Corrine Strayhorn, Kathy Ponce de Leon and family, and Newman Women's League, Joe and Kathy Evans, Mary Reed, Jen Lassiter, Mattos Newspapers, United California Bank, Girl Scouts, Carrie Thompson is their leader, Shirley McConnell, Superior Truck Lines, Deanie Azevedo, and Orstemba High School Student Council, Catherine Quitmeyer, and Rosie Lucas, Lolly Dompey, Ed and Mary Williams, Francis Bennett, and the looks like NG Cub Scout Pack number 83. And I can't read the name. This is written down there, and I can't read the name that who their leader. But I want to thank all these people. They've done a lot of good work down there, and it looks great. A couple of things here that aren't really important, so I'll drop those. I just want to say that the last couple of years have been very interesting and enjoyable. And I wish John and the new council all the luck in the world. And with that, we'll go to adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.
This is not your last meeting.
Yes, it is.
Why?
because they'll have it certified before the next meeting.